let's have a look at the most dangerous parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. Now, everything to the right of that diagram, ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays, they are ionizing. And you need to know what ionizing means. So if you haven't got the details on that, you're going to have to do some research to figure it out. It's all about the energy of the ray knocking electrons out of atoms to create an ion, and that ion behaves differently. It behaves different chemically, so it doesn't join together in the same way as it would have done had it been a normal atom. If that atom is inside your body, if it's inside in one of your cells, then it could kill the cell and it would die. And that's what sunburn is. It's the death of cells. But it could do something else. If that ionized atom is in your DNA, then the cell may not die, but its DNA could be damaged. And DNA is like the instruction manual for your Lego set. And if you've got pages 20 to 26 missing and you're trying to make the model, something's going to go wrong and the model isn't going to look right and it's going to collapse or it's going to be built wrong, and this is what happens in your cells. So if ionizing radiation hits your cell and damages the DNA, it could cause cancer, uncontrolled growth. X-rays are used in airports to look at your luggage. I'm sure if you've been to an airport, you've seen it, you put it in, and it's a shame you don't always get to see the pictures because they do look quite interesting. And how they're trained to recognise the stuff, I don't know, but you can look from that picture and see it looks like some headphones in there and some computer equipment and some canisters or something. But the people there are trained into what to look for. They're looking for guns, aren't they? They're looking for bombs and stuff like that. But imagine one day, one operator of the machine saw this on the screen. What is it? Any ideas? Here it is from another angle, or a few seconds later. It's a woman who jumped into the machine to try to get her bag back for some stupid reason. She got a massive dose of X-rays, and you can see there her bones, her skull, and her internal organs. Ugh. So some of you will have had X-rays, and when we're talking about X-rays and gamma rays, we're talking about managing risk. It's always dangerous, but how dangerous depends. And when you have an X-ray, you have it for a particular reason, and the reason outweighs the risks. So whenever we talk about ionizing radiation and X-rays and gamma rays and even ultraviolet rays, remember to talk about risk, that they are dangerous, but can we minimize that danger, or is it worth going through the danger because of what we get from having the X-ray or having the gamma treatment or having a sunburn or whatever it is that we're having a tan. So always think about that risk and managing the risk. And to do that, I've put a website address in the document, and if you click on it, it will take you to a page that will allow you to pretend you're having X-rays and see how it increases your risk of cancer. So some of you may have had X-rays on your teeth or on a few bones here and there, but hopefully not a lot of X-rays. But the more you have and different parts of the body, the risk is greater. So I've set a little task inside the document to look at that website and see what it takes to kill someone off with X-rays. When X-rays were first discovered, it was quite a novelty. Have a look at this picture. This proves what an X-ray picture actually is. It's a shadow. It's a shadow of the bones. It isn't a photograph of the bones themselves. It's the shadow of the bones. So the rays are shining through the hand, getting absorbed by the bone and therefore not reaching the photographic plate. So this is a positive image of an X-ray of a hand. And these were done, can you believe it or not, at people's weddings. So get an X-ray picture done for your wedding photo for some reason. And that's what this is. Traditionally, though, we normally see them as negatives. So it's the same idea. So we often think, well, maybe it's a picture of bones, but it's not a picture of bones. It's the shadow of the bone. And in this case, the shadow of the bone is something very nasty looking. It's a nail buried deep into someone's skull. Now, all the pictures I'm going to show you of various different X-rays, all the people in them survived and lived healthily. They weren't impeded by the disaster, although they are pretty serious, some of these pictures. So if you're a bit squeamish, you might want to look away. But this guy has got a nail in his head, and he was 50 when he discovered this. He had an itch on his forehead, and he went to the doctor and said, oh, "I've got this strange itch on my forehead here, doctor." So they went in for a scan and had a look, and they did an X-ray, and they found this, and he'd been living with it for 30, 40 years. Didn't even know it was there. This one, a little bit more serious, isn't it? Multiple nail wounds. This is from a nail gun where some guy was putting up shelves or something with a nail gun, and it ricocheted off the wall and went into his head. He survived. None of them broke his spine, didn't damage any useful part of his brain. Unbelievable. Oh, this one's a bit sad, but again, happy ending. This is a child, a small baby learning to walk. And as you know, when children try to walk, they fall over, don't they? And so this kiddie fell over onto his father's car keys, and they impaled up his nose and into his eye socket and then through into his brain. But fortunately, didn't damage his eye, so he was intact there. And little brains grow back very quickly, so he had no long-term damage and made a full recovery. This poor guy, I mean, look at this. What is it? Yep, it looks like some scissors inside a body. And I think what the story here is, the person had an operation and they're all stitched up and went home, and then complained of stomach cramps, stomach pains. And meanwhile, back in the surgery, the surgeon's going, "Oh, anyone see my scissors?" Turns out he dropped them and left them inside the body. But they did open the guy up again and get them out, and he made a full recovery. What is this? Looks like some sort of garden implement, like a sickle or something like that. And the guy has fallen onto it, and it's gone into his eye socket. Again, it didn't damage his eye, which is a miracle. But and he survived, and they got the thing out. This is similar to when I was at school. It wasn't at my school; it was in a nearby school where they were doing javelin. You know, javelin, when you chuck the metal spear. And they always say, PE teacher always says, "Don't run to the javelin." Well, one kid did. He ran, slipped on the grass, and impaled his shoulder, and he was hung there on this, suspended in the air on this javelin. And they had to get an ambulance and saw the javelin, and to put him in the ambulance with it still in his arm. He couldn't pull it out because he would bleed to death. But he made a full recovery as well. So did this guy. Unbelievably, someone has stuck a knife into his head. But for whatever reason, missed vital arteries, and didn't seem to have any dramatic effect. As did this guy. This is a shot bow arrow. Very lucky it missed the spinal column and major arteries. Obviously made a mess of his face, but he survived. This last one is a bit strange. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to guess, and we're going to see who comes up with the best suggestion. But it's probably not quite what you think. A woman was complaining of stomach pains, went to the doctor, they did an X-ray, and this was the result. Can you guess what it is? I bet you can't, but if you look closely, I don't know, somebody might guess it. But have a guess, and we'll see what the funniest suggestion is. So X-rays are used in medicine to see what's there. We know that. And there's a danger associated with that. You don't want to do it willy-nilly. So how do you explain this? This was used in shoe shops up until sort of the mid-1960s, where you take your child in, and instead of using those little like little trash compactor things that squeezes into your foot, that's quite fun, they put your foot, the child's foot, inside an X-ray machine, and they could see then if the shoe fitted or not. You can see there's an advantage of that because, you know, a kid, you put a new shoes on the kid and it all feels stiff, and the kid says, "Oh, I don't think it feels too tight." But at least here, the shop assistant can look through, and the parent can look through as well. They both have a good old look through, getting a nice little dose of X-rays to all three of them, and they would see that the shoe was a perfect fit or whatever. So a very useful device, but clear disadvantages of that. So one of your tasks is going to be to list the pros and cons of this technique. It sounds like a good idea, sounds like a bad idea, but can you list the opportunities and the threats to everybody involved in using an X-ray machine in a shoe shop? And of course, We don't use them today, so obviously it comes out one particular way, as you can guess. So that's X-rays. This is a picture of the nuclear reactor at Chernobyl, which flung cesium and other radioactive dust and elements into the atmosphere all over Europe, and the people nearby became sick. They were all evacuated, but even with them being evacuated, they became affected by radiation poisoning. A lot of people died, as we know. Now, gamma rays beam out from this dust. It's very difficult to stop them. The only way you can stop gamma rays is don't be anywhere near them, as in leave, or shield yourself and put a very thick lead between you and the source that's giving out the gamma rays. It wasn't just people that were affected. This apparently, if you look at the translation, it's a pig, like a pig, but apparently it's a pig. It's a mutant. But it's not just animals and trees and insects that were mutated, people were too. Now, what's curious about this guy is he was born after 1986, so he wasn't born during the Chernobyl disaster. But something very unusual about him. If you look closely, you'll see it. He's a mutant. So his mother's DNA was affected, maybe his father's DNA too were affected, and that affected him. So the mother who was affected gave birth to a mutant. That's quite useful, obviously. He's probably really good on the piano, but not so good with this guy. You know, quite a sad state of affairs when children are born disfigured like this. So gamma rays, bad, and yet we use them in medicine. And your final task is to work out how and why. So radioactive cobalt can be used to fire gamma rays at a tumour. Now, the gamma rays will kill cells, but if you target them, they'll kill the cells you want to die, the cancerous cells. I mean, it'll kill a few cells around them, but those healthy cells that die, they'll soon grow back. But the cancerous cells hopefully won't grow back. It's painless. A course of treatment doesn't take very long. You're only in the machine for about 10 minutes, but you have to come back every week for a number of weeks. What I'd like you to do is to research radiotherapy and see what you think about it, and look at writing a sort of a letter to a friend who may have to have it. See if you can convince them that it's a good idea to have it. Now, radiotherapy is not chemotherapy. They are different. Chemotherapy is when you're given chemicals that kill your cells. This is where the radiation is beamed in to kill your cells. So have a look at that. Some simple questions to answer. See if you can put it together. It's detail that gives you the points. So if it says 6 points, that means you've got to make, a fair few points for and against. Have a go, and we'll talk soon.